Welcome, everybody. This is Belmont Journal. I'm Anne Marie Mahoney, and joining me today for this edition of News Now is Select Board member and almost chair, Roy Epstein, and Belmont Housing Trust, Rachel Heller. Rachel and Roy are co-chairs of the MBTA Communities Advisory Committee. And if you don't know what this is, you're soon going to know, and you're going to start hearing a lot about this around town because it is a very important initiative set in motion by Governor Charlie Baker as an opportunity to provide more housing in the communities served by the MBTA. So I'm not going to talk a lot about this because I want Roy and Rachel to give you the information they have, and in particular to highlight a public forum that will be taking place on June 21st. And we want the word to get out so that everyone can come or tune in and listen and ask questions. Roy and Rachel, welcome.
Thank you.
Give us some information about this initiative.
Thank you. It might make sense to briefly reprise what we presented to a town meeting in January, and then Rachel can speak more specifically about what we're planning for the 21st and beyond. But this whole project started last year when there's a new state law that essentially mandates communities served by the MBTA to create special new zoning districts that have increased allowed density by right for multifamily units. A multifamily unit is defined as a building that has 3 or more dwelling units. There are certain exceptions, but that's the idea, 3 or more, that a developer could build by right. So to expedite the whole building process, there wouldn't be a need for a special permit from a planning board. If somebody wanted to build a 3-unit building in some part of town that had been zoned for this purpose, they could have that right without any further requirements. In the case of Belmont, there's a whole set of formulas basically that govern what towns need to create or allow for. In Belmont, there needs to be at least 14 acres of these districts within half a mile of our 2 train stations. Then in total, the districts have to allow density such that in theory, at least 1,632 apartments could be constructed. So that means that there's a range. Oh, and then the other wrinkle is that there's a minimum density so that the zoning district has to allow at least 15 units per acre. So if you do the math, it creates a range where you could have a smallish district that would be pretty high density to a larger district that would have lower density. And it's up to the communities to map out the district, where they want the districts to be and what the densities would be and all of that, with the constraints that this minimum acreage has to be near a train station. And then there are some technical requirements that the districts have to be at least a minimum size and contiguous and so forth. So Rachel and I are co-chairs of a committee which started work last fall. We've completed some initial milestones of creating what's called an action plan. But really since February, we've been turning our attention to thinking about what these districts would actually look like, where they'd be located, their boundaries, what the zoning densities would be, and so forth. We've had some initial ideas, but a lot of this also depends on community input. So for that reason, we wanted to have a significant community engagement early in the process. So that's the event that Anne Marie just mentioned on June 21st, which is, Rachel, at what time?
7:00 p.m. at the library.
7 o'clock, but it is hybrid. Oh, at the library?
That's correct.
But it's hybrid. So we will be there live and you can come join us live, but it will also have a remote component, and exactly how the remote piece will coordinate with the hybrid piece is something we'll we're working on it. We'll figure it out by then. But with that, Rachel, let me turn it over to you. And
Right, thank you.
let's-
Yes, as Roy was saying, we really want to involve the community in a big way in this, and we are shaping Belmont's future. And I think Belmont did something really thoughtful in the creation of this MBTA Communities Advisory Committee. This committee is made up of the Housing Trust, the Planning Board, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, the Implementation Committee, the Economic Development Committee. And it's bringing all of these different committees together because this is about planning for Belmont's future. When we allow for more housing, how do we do that in a way that will allow people to run their errands, go out to dinner without always having to drive, supporting our local businesses, making it easier to, again, to get around without driving, without polluting the air, without adding to the traffic. So really just, it's a great committee that's coming at this from a lot of different perspectives. And we have not made any decisions yet at all. We're looking at the different areas where there are already there's commercial development. So where can we really support those local businesses, help diversify our tax base, add to our affordable housing? And on the 21st, we'll be able to show some of the areas that we've been thinking about, either because it's around the commuter rail stations like the law states, or because we do have the freedom and flexibility as a community to put zoning in place in other areas. So on the 21st, we'll present information and we'll have our technical assistance providers from the Metropolitan Area Planning Council there to present with us and help us explain what the law is all about. And then we'll really get interactive and hear from people, hear their questions, but also just really dig in and start to think about what a future for Belmont and to look like, with more affordability, more economic development, more sustainability. And so I'm looking forward to it. We're also going to have some office hours if people want to dig in a little bit more and ask very specific questions. We're setting those up for right now, the 20th and 21st. We're going to have a website, a web link that you'll be able to go to so that you can sign up for office hours. You can see when we're having more and really, like I said, really engage with this and help us to think about how we have that bright future here in our community.
All right, it sounds interesting. There are a lot of opportunities here. We are a little bit of a dense community, but I do know from my experience looking for sites for a potential new police station or DPW or those kinds of things, or even when the library was looking around, there are parcels. And I think the beauty of Belmont is that we do have those two train stations in really conveniently located places so that people can walk, can, access commercial stuff, as you say, restaurants, shopping, or whatever. Belmont is a very walkable town. And so this would increase people's opportunity to live in places where they could just walk, which is really good. Excellent. What else would you like the community to know prior to this forum? Is there someplace that they can go, perhaps on the town website, to look at more material?
Absolutely. We have on the town website, our committee does have a web page. It's the MBTA Communities Advisory Committee. And we'll make sure that there is a link to the special web page that we're setting up with MAPC to provide even more information. So on that web page, you'll be able to see our housing production plan. You'll be able to see different materials that we have discussed in our MBTA Communities Advisory Committee meetings. And you'll be able to read frequently asked questions, and it's just going to be a really nice spot to go to get a handle on what the new law is about.
All right, very good. Any hints as to what you're looking at or what you hope to achieve in the short term?
Well, I think this whole project by its nature is short term because our final zoning has to be in place by the end of 2024. But realistically, it needs to come before town meeting in the spring of 2024. So that's really not even a year away at this point. So there's actually very little time to put this all together.
Right. And I also think it's important to know for those in the community who've been involved with the creation of our new housing production plan, this really is coming along at a nice time where the community just worked through what are our affordable housing needs, where are areas that we could be developing. If they end up overlapping with our MBTA community zoning, then we're actually putting the zoning in place that would allow for that development to happen and help us to expand the affordable homes that we're aiming to provide here in town. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity. And again, just with the commercial development and thinking about how this could really help our local businesses thrive. I think there's a lot of really great opportunities here, and I can't wait to hear from the public about their ideas.
Anne Marie, just to put a little more shape on it. So the committee so far has discussed kind of three broad concepts. One is allowing mixed use in the town centers, particularly Waverly and Belmont Center. Second, as it turns out, redeveloping Belmont Housing Authority properties makes them eligible for this, so that there's already planning in place to redevelop both Sherman Gardens and Belmont Village. Sherman Gardens is further along, but they could be developed at higher densities than they are now. And the architects have been very good about coming up with concepts to make that work. And the third is identifying what we feel are underutilized parcels in Belmont to convert them into something that hopefully would be attractive and also tax-paying as well as convenient. So that's what we're working on.
Yeah, and I think what's exciting about what Roy just laid out, those three areas, is how that's really creating options for people at so many different price points. It would be wonderful if we're expanding our public housing and creating more deeply affordable homes. If we're having mixed income or mixed use buildings that can allow for mixed income development, so we can have, more homes at different price points. So it's not just a $700,000 condo or $1.7 million home, but by having more homes closer together above commercial space, we can start to get to price points that more people can afford.
All right. Well, it sounds really interesting. And you've given people some food for thought so that they can start doing a little research on their own, or even just kind of drive around town, look at the Waverly and the Belmont Center train stations and, think for yourself, what could go close to them? What's going to work? What's going to improve our community? So thank you so much for being with me. And thank you for this really quick snapshot. Once again, we invite everyone to the forum that will be held on June 21st at the public library, but also hybrid, so that you can get onto it on Zoom from the beach, from the mountains. No matter where you are at the end of June, you can still tune in.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Roy
Thank
and
you.
Rachel.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you so much.
And this is Belmont Journal. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.